It's been a while since a French watch was on my channel, and that had to be rectified as soon as possible since some of the most fun, innovative and genuinely interesting watches I've ever had under my lens have been from France. Just under a year ago I had the AM2 Slim from March Lab, and I liked that very much. But now I have the AM2 in titanium and with a lovely movement and many small additional touches, and it's only just released today, so that's extra exciting. I'd be lying if I wasn't extremely proud to be chosen as one of the channels to get to experience this firsthand. So why should you care about a French brand that is important and well known in France, but perhaps not so much in the rest of the world? Well, watches are small mechanical marvels, and what I personally enjoy so much is the detail. The closer you get, the more you find, and there are loads of that here. I don't want to spoil my review in advance, but date windows, indices, hands and a dial is chock full of little things to discover in your own time. So the real question here is, should you? At €2,295, this is by no means a cheap piece, and it's probably not your first watch purchase, but likely an addition to a larger collection. If you're here looking at this, perhaps you've already owned the Cartier Santos, which for the record is at 3 times this amount. And whilst it has perhaps a bit more clout in terms of brand names, it is similar in shape only, and perhaps not as exciting as this one, depending on your own personal taste of course. The brand name itself is a story. It's made up of a month that happens to be the 3rd of the year, and Los Angeles in the US and Biarritz in France, hence the LAB. It's no accident that this watch is released in March, and yet another small detail is that this model is limited to 133 pieces. And they'll have no problem selling these, so your only decision here is yes or no, and how quickly you need to move. Anyway, let's discover this one together right now. I only ever bother with packaging if it's special, and it is real special here. Thick, rich cardboard is in use, and the wallet is not just your standard affair. It's heavily on brand, and in my case even a little book on French literature was provided. And the reality is that all this builds an overall view of what you're getting. A well thought through experience that never deviates from the vision. So to the sizing. It's 38mm wide and 44mm lug to lug. Lug width is 22mm and it is 11.5mm thick. It's water resistant to 100 meters with a 2-year warranty, and sized up for me it weighs 94 grams thanks to the all titanium construction. The dimensions don't tell the story as to how this wears, and I'm sure that comes across in the visuals here. Getting up close to the dial, it is a lovely matte grey with the intertwined signature lines of the logo covering the large central square. An applied logo can be found at the 12 position, and at 6 we find a straightforward description of automatic, titanium and made in France. Moving around the dial, we find an unusual arrangement of polished indices. Some are straightforward like the 2 and 3, but the horizontal markers are slightly at an angle, which almost looks like a mistake, but it is in fact very deliberate. Why, you might ask? I suspect the answer is because we can. The frame date window is showing off an unusual font choice, and the number 3 for March is green, which I believe is the founder's favorite color. Speaking of green, the dark green seconds hand is yet another detail that speaks to the vision behind the watch. The hands themselves makes me think of a tuning fork, and I love the design of them. However, they do hide the only major flaw which I will come back to. But visually, they are a treat to my eyes at least. Overall, this is an interesting dial that, despite its many small extra touches, comes together very well. The attention to detail and the overall execution easily holds up to the mid-range luxury field that March Lab plays in. And in many ways, it's far more interesting, and perhaps even more so for those of us that are not based in France, where these watches are not a rare sight. The case is really quite special too. It's a fixed bezel that holds a domed sapphire glass in place with AR coating. It's full of amazing angles and a mix of polished and brushed surfaces, and particularly the polished ones is an achievement since titanium is reportedly notoriously difficult to work with. The polished corners catch the light all the time. In fact, this is a watch that makes its presence known on your wrist, and to me it looks absolutely brilliant. The way the bracelet makes the size of the watch reminds me of that scene in Blade Runner approaching the Tyrell Corporation pyramid, which I appreciate is obscure, but whatever you think, it's an interesting approach to lug and bracelet design. I understand why the lugs are not drilled, so the safest option if you want to swap out the bracelet is a quick release strap. The crown is push-pull and quite substantial at 7.4mm. The knurling is the repeated pattern of the logo and is also signed on the side. Another example of why this is a luxury product with a lot of attention to detail. The back of the watch has a screw-in case back with the logo, and that's pretty much it, other than Swiss movement and numbered edition. I like this, no shouting here about various things, and that's not trying to hide anything either. Within ticks the La Joux Perret G100 with its 68-hour power reserve and an accuracy of around plus to minus 12 seconds per day. It would be nice to see it since it's quite an attractive movement, but it's not an option here. The titanium quick release H-link bracelet is attractive and I like it. It can however be a bit of a hair nipper, I've realized. It also has this tiny so-called box clasp that can create some hairy moments if you're not careful when you're putting the watch on. I'm not huge on bracelets myself, but it suits the watch and it looks good. Where it really comes alive for me is swapping over the bracelet to this black canvas strap from Artem. This makes it look next level to my eyes, and the black really complements the dark grey dial nicely. In fact, putting this on is when I really fell in love with the watch, and now it will be very difficult to send it back, but that said, I'd rather not end up on the Interpol registry, so don't worry Axel, it is coming back. It's now a very masculine piece that I can see myself wearing daily. I'm keen to hear what you think about this combination. Finally, to the lume, which is probably the only issue I have with the watch really. There are some excellent lume pips around the dial, but the lume on the hands is embarrassingly weak, as in just leave it off rather than having any. Granted, there's not much space for it available. So many dress watches have no lume, and it is acceptable to omit it. Seeing the time in the dark is not the be-all and end-all. But the application on the hands I think should just be left off or improved for the future. So what do you think of the AM2 Titanium from March Lab? I'm quite taken once again by this one, and it scratches a big Cartier Santos itch that I've had for quite some time. It's such an individual design with so many intricate and interesting details everywhere. That crown, for instance, is so much fun, and it's the sort of thing that makes you want to keep wearing it and showing it off. I can definitely appreciate that the price may put many people off, but let's be honest, we pay top dollar for many Swiss watches that have just a brand name on the dial, but otherwise have nothing really over many microbrands, nor unique offerings such as this one from France that's only just starting to make a name for itself around the world. I love titanium. I like the slightly darker grey shade, and in this combination with a dark grey and highly textured dial, it looks fantastic, and I would be more than happy to wear this all day, every day. You're the only one that can answer the issue of the value proposition for yourself, but the reality is that this is a company that doesn't struggle to move watches, so get on board, I say. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you next time.